Hi.
Hi, Prana Boosters. Welcome to our show today. I'm excited to have with me two amazing featured guest Prana Boosters who are joining me in another conversation about mindful parenting. First, we have Heather of wiseinside.com, and she is also the author of this book, How to Raise a Happy Child and Be Happy Too. Hi, Heather.
Yay! Hi. So
So
glad to be here again.
happy to see you. And we also have Eric of oneawesomedad.com, and he is also a parenting coach. Hi, Eric.
Hey, everyone. Hi, Tina. Hi, Heather. Great to be on again.
Yay. So I'm just going to read a couple words that I thought of before we start the show. And I just want to say I'm really excited to come together and share our thoughts and our experiences with each other. I'm grateful to share this space with you both, as I believe our mutual intention is that other parents can hear our conversation, and it may spark a thought or an idea of what they'd like to do in their own family. A lot of our parenting styles are very new ways of thinking, and to have these conversations that we're already having publicly, so other parents won't feel so alone. And I just want to add a little fine print to the show, which is I want to add that I'm a huge advocate for feeling your way through parenting and using your own intuition to guide you on what feels best to you and your family. So keep in mind, we are not telling people what to do. We are inspiring them by telling people what we do and what's actually possible. So here we go. So we were talking, and we thought that a really good topic and a question that I don't know if you guys get asked, but a question that I get asked a lot is why do you even, why have you chosen to parent in this way? And quite possibly, how did you come to this decision? Because at the end of the day, it is actually a decision to parent mindfully. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's definitely a decision. It's a choice, just like all the other choices that we have on this planet, right? It's just another choice in our toolbox of choices. So,
Right, absolutely. So, Heather, I would ask you if you want to start. I just want to ask you why you have made this choice to parent in this way. And I know you have a very good story because I know your story.
I know your story. I know your story. You know, from the get-go, I've been working with kids since I was 12 years old and owned a preschool in that time frame and a wellness center. And the preschool in particular kind of gave me the training ground of how to work with children and how to work with them in a way that both of us could get what we want and cooperate together. And so this has always been in my wheelhouse simply for the fact of survival, really, because when you have 50 or 100 kids that are, against you, 1 to 50 or 100 or 2 teachers, you kind of have to be resourceful and really connect with them on a heart-to-heart level so that you can get your desires met and their desires and needs met at the same time. So for years, I've been practicing this kind of communication, and that's really what I see it as, is it's communication and honing those skills in so that I can have a situation where we both cooperate to get what we want, not compromise, but cooperate so that I get my needs met to the best of our abilities and they get their needs met to the best of our abilities, and we can work together to make that happen. So I have slightly an unfair advantage to most parents because I've had 25 years of practicing with 30,000 kids. And what I will say is if you don't get it after that, like seriously, you've got an issue in the first place. So that's just far too much practice to not get it. With that being said, with my own son, it still brings on new challenges, new thoughts, because again, I am bringing my own baggage to this situation with my son that I didn't have that baggage with other kids and their families. there wasn't the guilt and frustration and stuff attached with it, and I didn't take it personally. You know, when a child was struggling, it didn't mean that I was a bad teacher. It simply meant I needed to change my approach. Where as a mom, if my child's struggling, I automatically say, what did I do? What did I not do? What am I not doing? I'm not good enough. And I have to have some self-talk to talk myself back out of that space. So to answer your question, yes, I've had a lot of practice, but this has been innate in me, and that's where I come up with Wise Inside, because I believe all of us have it in us to choose a different direction, to see a different perspective, to be in a different space. And sometimes we just need tools and strategies to get there. It's not because of intention. We, I believe, all have the intention to really connect with our children and love our children. And again, nobody comes on this planet saying, gosh, you know, I just can't wait to ruin this child. We all have amazing expectations for ourselves and our children when they enter this world. So I think sometimes our baggage, our stuff just gets in the way, and we need tools and strategies to help get us through those moments, because the intention is very clear. We love our children. We want the best for them. We want to raise happy children and be happy too. That's the gist of it. So that's
Right.
where I choose to keep going forward in that path.
Right.
Beautiful. That's awesome. And yes, it is very different, because while you did have a wonderful training because you had so many children that you had to work with, you really had to have some self-awareness, because there were a lot of things that legally you weren't allowed to do. I mean, if people actually that conflict, I bet you there's a lot of things that wouldn't be tolerated in a public environment, you know, that parents do to their children. So you were able to build up this wonderful, you know, ability to have that self-awareness before you even became a mom, right?
Exactly. You don't have the space to yell at other people's children or hit them or spank them, or, you know, and the methods I was trained in at the time, and this was 25 years ago when I went to school, was timeout was the big thing. So I used all the methods they said, but they didn't work. And especially on a scale of 50 to 75 kids, it doesn't work. So that's
Right.
where I honed in and got some different skills that actually worked. But yeah, absolutely. I had to practice different skill sets because I wasn't in the space of being able to, you know, spank or hit or yell at or scream or anything like that, because they were other people's children. I couldn't do that to them. That's not what they paid me for.
Right. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Okay, Eric, so we'd love to hear from you. You're a very big advocate for this type of, you know, mindful, gentle, peaceful, conscious parenting. And, you know, I know you have a son who's 4, right?
I have a son who's 4, right, and he has yet to be punished or screamed at or spanked, or, you know, not that I haven't ever lost my temper. I have, but you know, I'm imperfect, you know, and we're all imperfect, and I think that's part of this, is that nobody is perfect. We're all learning. We're all trying to do our best. And for me, getting into parenting sort of falls in line with, I feel like there's a larger awakening happening right now, and it has a lot to do with the internet. I think it has everything to do with the internet, because there's so much knowledge out there for everyone that's available, including how to raise kids better. Um, so I'm a little bit on, maybe you could say, in opposite end of the spectrum from Heather, in that I didn't think about raising kids or parenting much at all until my son was born, sort of just going about my life, and then my son comes along and I say, oh, I better learn this stuff. And I think part of it with me as well was maybe a bit of wanting to do a better job at raising my son than I feel like I was raised. You know, I grew up in a pretty strict, authoritarian, you know, punishing, spanking, threatening type of household, and I think maybe I felt like it didn't work so good for me. Um, but regardless, when my son came along, I realized I better learn this stuff, and I first picked up, I think, was Laura Markham's book on peaceful parenting, and then I said, "Oh, this is great. Give me some more of this." And I just continued to learn. I picked up some stuff by uh, Dr. Shafali and with Alfie Kohn, and the more I read, the more I realized you really don't have to punish your kid. You don't have to threaten and scream and manipulate and time out and all these kinds of things because as Heather said before, it doesn't work. So,
Right.
so, so then the question is, what does work? And that's the big question, isn't it? What does work? And then the question is, and this is what I love about Albie Cohn, because he always asks, when we say what works, what are we talking about exactly? Because a lot of times in parenting discussions, when you talk about what works, the question you're really getting at is, how do I get my kid to behave the way I want my kid to behave? And that's
Right.
not always the right question to ask. I think the right question is going to be, what kind of children, what kind of people we want to raise ultimately. And I think when you ask that question, you head down a better path.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing. I think that, well, I'll share a little bit about how I came to this path, and I think that, to be honest with you, it was harder for me to remember. It was harder for me to go back because my kids are 9 and 11 now, and I was trying to go back, 11 or 12 years even to when I was pregnant, and try to think about how exactly this came about. But my whole life I've been kind of a questioner. Um, of everything, of how people act, of what people say. I would just, right, me too, hands up, just
Yep,
question
yep.
authority, question process, question behavior. Just, I want to get a T-shirt that says it just doesn't make any sense, because it's not making any sense. So and I knew when I was pregnant, I wasn't completely clear, but intuitively I understood the mind-body connection, mind-body-spirit connection. I didn't have the words for it back then, and I didn't have the correct vocabulary, but I kind of felt like I was going to have a relationship with my kids similar to one with my husband, right? It was going to be based on compassion and, love and kindness. And for me, my big word is nonviolence. I don't love that word because it includes the word violence, but I believe that nonviolence, as Gandhi states it, it's sort of a good thing to focus on, because the focus was peace, right? And I just feel like there's always a way to talk stuff through. There's always a way to figure something out. It just, recently when my kids were, growing up, I had to explain to them what a lawyer was. And I was like, a lawyer is just somebody who helps adults argue. I don't want to insult lawyers, but essentially that's what they're doing. They're managing, conflict. And it's not to say we don't need that, but I just was really always focused on how people managed conflict and how they treated others. And I really just I myself wanted to live in a peaceful home. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to learn some stuff. So I, like you, like Eric, like you said, and Heather, I started reading, and I started, back then for me it was like Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, and I'm not even sure who else started me. But I just knew that there was a different way that I was going to raise these kids. And then, doing it with so much love and making that decision and coming to it with that commitment, it just was easier to do, So, I didn't feel the need to yell. The thing that scared me the most is the very first time I got angry at my child that came out of me. That scared me, actually. My emotion scared me because I was like, whoa, I'm like, what the heck is that? But essentially, she pretty much headbutted me in a Trader Joe's. I was holding her and shopping, and I was by myself. I don't know why, because usually Alan and I shop together, my husband. And I was holding her, and she, she did something like that, and she headbutted me, and instead of me being like, I was in pain, but I got angry. I was so angry, and at first I couldn't figure out, oh my God, who am I angry at? Am I angry at her? Am I angry at me? Am I angry that it happened? Did she just knock my brain loose? Like, I don't know what happened. So it was really scary to me, and I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do when that hits? Like, that's important. Let me look at that. So I was willing and I was open to really research myself and research my own behavior and figure out how I contribute to the relationship that I want to have. And just like crazy, like almost, obsessively, I started looking into it and reading it. And then, like you were saying, Heather, a lot of the tools and techniques that we're familiar with, they never felt right. No. So even if my daughter started, like, let's just say my oldest, right, if she started to do something that I didn't think was safe or, mindful or something, I didn't think of punishing her. I thought, well, I'm here to guide her. Like, I'm the one, who's older and I'm supposed to know. So how can I guide her, maybe to make a better choice or not do that again? But to punish her for a child for didn't make sense to me. And I kept saying it doesn't make any sense. But then as they got older, stuff didn't work. So like one time I remember arguing with, one of my kids, and I'm like, well, I'm going to take that toy or something. And we both started laughing because she looked at me like, well, what is that going to do? You're going to play with it? Then I'm going to be fighting with you. Like, it just, when we acted some of it out, it seemed so silly. So I kept going layer and layer deeper because they were just silly. And when emotions flared, I never wanted to leave them alone and just like lock them in their room. I remember someone telling me when my daughter was probably like 3, how do you plan on disciplining? What's your plan? What are you guys going to do for discipline? And I'm like, just work through it, like love them. Like I didn't even know what to say. I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying. Are you saying punishment? Like, do you want me to punish? And it's interesting. I just did an interview with Dr. Laura Markham, and we both were stating that punishment, if you look up the word, it is actually violence. So you can't really like punish your child in a loving way. It's like an oxymoron. You can't do it, right? Would you guys agree with that?
I would agree with that for sure, right.
Like, hi, I love you, but I'm going to punish you first.
The phrase that I always questioned was tough love. Like, for me,
tough love, yes.
For me, love isn't tough, right?
Right.
So it's not quite the right phrase in my mind.
Well, and I think it's from generations of people passing down these words that, again, it's habitual. It's not intentional. Because I don't think for 1 minute, again, that any parent is looking to have violence with their child. That's not their intention. But I think it's habitual in the sense that we have passed that down from generation to generation. You should discipline. You should punish them. You should do X, Y, Z. And as our generations change and evolve and grow, and it doesn't diminish what our parents did with us, because I, again, believe they did the best they could with what they had. But we are also in a space where we have a lot more, like you said, Eric, information and a lot more knowledge that we can soak in and go, God, that just doesn't feel good. And now we can do something different and rephrase those spaces of punishment and change it to even discipline. Discipline is also defined as a guidance or teaching. So to me, right. Discipline doesn't have it's not a bad word per se. Like, it's not something that I take as bad. I do have to have discipline in order to do my job, so there's it's how the intention and the energy, I think, behind the words too. Like you said, if you have that thought process, I'm going to punish you and you're going to get in trouble, that's a different sense than, we need to figure out what's going on here and let's work through this. It's a different vocabulary altogether. Yeah. But I think the intention is still clear with parents that, they want to work through this. Like, I see people punishing their kids all day long at the park. The park is, the playground of all the punishment, and they don't feel good doing it. I watch them. They don't feel good doing it. It's just they don't know what else to do. Like,
right,
Right. Yeah, I agree, but to be honest, I mean, I think that our parents didn't have what we have, and when you know better, you do better, and it's challenging to hear parents say, well, I just don't know what else to do than hit. I'm just going to hit because, it makes me think I can't just smack my husband if he doesn't do what I want or he doesn't answer me the right way. That's actually illegal, right? I can't, if he picks up something that I told him not to touch, I can't punish him and send him to his room or we wouldn't stay married. I also cannot go to Chipotle and wait in line, and if they take too long to make my food, go back there and start spanking them. I can't do that.
Right.
So we're acting in ways that are not acceptable. And yes, of course, it is habitual. People are waking up, and consciousness and awareness is becoming,
You're breaking up a little bit, Tina.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you last hear?
We lost you for about 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah, it was like
okay,
consciousness.
I was just going to say that as consciousness and awareness increases, I think that we can help each other, and sort of hold each other's hand. That behavior is basically, the old way, and that
Right.
perhaps we're going to make a different decision now. We're not going to continue to do that. So like when my kids were little, once in a while they did hit. They did do things that we would deem unacceptable, right? Or it's just not appropriate behavior. But I would say to them, and I would even be honest, I would say, listen, people do hit. It's true. Because I don't want to say like, nobody hits. That's not what we're supposed to do. I say people do hit, feel their emotions, but we're not going to hit in our family because we're choosing not to do that. So like these have been like really conscious, loud, choices and discussions and commitments.
You're breaking up a little bit more.
Okay, I'm not seeing it on my end. You guys look really good.
Yeah, we lost you for another 5, 10 seconds there.
All right. It's live, so I'm not sure what to do. I can't really pause you guys, but
Okay.
anyway, can you hear now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I think there's a point where those of us who have maybe some more awareness about better parenting practices, I think that's where maybe we have some responsibility to get out there and share the message, even if other people don't like hearing it so much. And even if it doesn't quite resonate with them the first time they hear it. I remember in college there was a group called "It's Never Okay to Hit a Child." I remember seeing they had T-shirts, bumper stickers, and I remember seeing that and maybe thinking to myself, well, maybe that's a little extreme, was my thought, but I hadn't been in a sort of parenting mode of questioning or anything. The point I'm getting at is that message resonated with me over time until I sort of chewed on it for a number of years and then came to the conclusion that's right on. It's never okay to hit a child. So I think there is a sort of a responsibility for us who have the awareness, who have the knowledge, to get out there and share the message, even if others don't like hearing it, or if they don't agree, or if they fiercely oppose it.
Right, oh, sorry, Heather, go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I totally agree, and I think that one thing I wouldn't want to do is, segregate groups. I think that what I'd like to do is be sure that people understand that it is, in fact, possible to parent in a loving way or have relationships in a loving, peaceful way, and it doesn't mean that you're always perfect or happy. marbles once in a while, but it means that you have enough awareness that you don't cross a line or a boundary, right, that you've set for your own family. And then when you come back into yourself, you reconnect with that person, whether it be your spouse or your child that you've had that conflict with. So it's just literally is a decision. And I think that all three of us, maybe I would like to know, but agree that maybe we can hold our hands out and extend it to other people who are in fact interested in finding a better way. So it's not even that it's not that it's better than someone else. It's just a better feeling way, something that will keep us more connected to our children and to our family. So we're not better than someone else, but we're trying to do something that feels better to everyone involved. So I just wanted to clarify that, how I felt about that.
Yeah.
But Heather, what were you going to say?
No, I agree, and I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that, again, if we go back to the space of that's not our intention to begin with, that we hold that space for each other, then we can have the moment where we can actually even switch the words around, right? So whether it is a should or shouldn't or could or couldn't, if we switch the words around, like, look, I get it. You're frustrated, you're angry, you're upset in the moment, but get this. It's so not necessary to hit. Like, here's what we can do differently. And we position it from a space of it's not necessary, because then that gives us also a little bit less resistance as human beings, because the minute when we say, like, don't do that, and this is one of my things with kids all the time, everybody says, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And what they don't understand oftentimes is that the kid doesn't even hear don't, because there's a tiny little piece in the back of our brain called the reticular activating system, and it's called the RAS, and it takes away don't. So all they hear is jump on the chair, jump on the, they don't hear the word don't. So it kind of goes for us as parents too, right? Like when I say, well, because it never feels good to me if somebody says, well, you should do this, Heather. Like, that doesn't feel good to me at all, because I'm like, you don't even know what I should or shouldn't be doing, so don't even. I start going to town on them, and so my little 3-year-old does the same thing if I choose to do that way. But when he goes to hit, just like you said, Tina, our positioning is, look, you can hit all day long. You can hit a punching bag. You can hit a bed. These are the things you can hit. And it's not necessary to hit, because you can actually work it out this way. In our home, if you need to hit, we give him an avenue to hit, a punching bag, his bed, his pillow, whatever he needs, because I also believe sometimes we have to get that energy out, and I need to give him a productive way to move that energy out of his body, because if we stuff it, then it just explodes in some other way, shape, or form. But our positioning is like, it's not necessary. And I think the same positioning could be for parents, right? Like, look, I'm holding the space for you that you don't want to do this, and I know that about you. So let's just skip over whether we should or shouldn't, and let's just say, hey, it's just not necessary, and here's what you can do in the meantime, and lay out those tools that can help you get through that space. Because even yesterday, talking to a friend of mine at the park, she's like, I said, oh, I had to come to the park. I had to get out of the house because I was just losing it. And she's like, wait a minute, like, you don't lose it. And I said, oh, yeah, I lose it. Like, And she's like, but you don't get angry. Oh, yeah, I do. I get so angry that literally I bite my tongue so hard it starts bleeding in my mouth. That's how angry I get. Because if he decides to hit me or yell at me or, no, that kind of thing, like, that doesn't feel good to me. And there are moments when I'm like, the South comes out in me, as my mother did, and says, oh, no, sir, you did not. And there is a part of me that wants to do exactly that which my mother did to me, which was slap me or put me in my room or shame me into a space. And it's not to say that my mom was a bad person. It's that that's the information that she had to work with, and that's what she did her very best in. And yet here we are, we're expanding and growing as humans do, right? We're not intended to be the same every generation. We're supposed to expand and grow. So it's not against my parents. But as a kid, yeah, I wish she would have, like, thought of a different way to deal with it than pinching me on my arm or slapping my leg, I mean. And I was that kid that when she slapped my leg, I said, I'm going to trace your handprint, and then I'm going to call CPS, and they're going to come get you. And she'd be like, oh, now it's on. So, like, I was that kid, right? Like, tracing the handprint so that it would prove that she hit me so she'd get in trouble. So, you know, I get it. We all have those frustrations. And I think for 1 minute to say that we don't get frustrated or upset is silly, because we're human, you know, just like Eric said, we're human, and we're just, for me, I'm just in a space that I've practiced so many different other things that I'd love to share those tools, you know, so that it's easier, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, absolutely. And you know, it's funny, but see, I think I kind of have always had a fear of anger. You know, I grew up around some anger, and I never felt like I was the one who was allowed to get angry. So I sort of learned to maybe stuff it in or maybe not get angry. I don't really even get to the point where I get really angry like that. Mine usually goes to sadness. I just skip anger and go to sadness. This reminds me of the movie that's out, Inside Out. I just sort of was afraid of anger, actually. So I wasn't angry. I went the other route. I would go like you know, Eddie Murphy or like funny on my kids when they were little and they would act out, because I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want conflict. So that was how I first initially got into this. And so when my oldest daughter would get upset, you know, they're still little. They're like 2 years old. You know, I'm got her like dancing on my thing, and I'm singing Super Freak to her. So I'm like, she's a super freak. She's super freaky. Like, you know, I went with humor, which at first, and now I know, you know, might not be good, obviously, with an older child, because you want to acknowledge their emotions. And I have definitely raised my daughters to understand that anger is a very valid and acceptable emotion, so long as you're taught what to do with that anger. So they totally know that I deeply accept that and fully unconditionally love them through it. Dump, you know, like upside down, or I would start doing jumping jacks. I did like deflection, you know, and change, you know, like look over here, you know, like we're not going to go down that anger route, because I didn't have any coping skills for dealing with, you know, anger between us. So so when we talk about it, yeah, I mean, it's true. So I thought it was really funny when they were going to even let me go home with my daughter. I'm like, so you're saying all I need is a car seat, and you're just going to give her to me? Like, what are you talking about? You can just give her to me. You didn't teach me anything. They're all, you know, childbirth classes, they're teaching us, like, how to diaper. My daughters know how to diaper their Elmo before they can speak. Like, they didn't teach me anything about the emotional side of being a parent, you know, how deeply I would feel things, and how, you know, how it could affect you if your child, you know, does something towards you. So a book that really helped me, I don't know if you guys have read it, but I'm thinking you might have, but The Four Agreements.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with that one, too.
That book really shifted things for me, because when I was able to become the parent that my child needed me to be and not take their behavior personally or believe them, because, you know, they say things they don't mean when they're angry. So I didn't believe them and I didn't take it personally. That's when things really shifted for me.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned about the shift that you have with changing yourself, right? And I think that's for me. So I think I started out with a lot of Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, right? And I think Wayne Dyer's book, you'll see it when you believe it, right?
Right.
There's sort of a shift there, right? And I think a lot of this stuff really applies so well to parenting, because parenting is mostly, it's about the parent, right? It's not so much about the child. And I think there at least for me, there's a real shift that has helped me. For me, parenting is it's the ultimate in personal development, right?
Right.
Because everything that triggers you, everything, every emotional issue that you have, you're gonna, it gets uncovered, you know. So I think for me, getting back to you were talking about anger. Um, I think I I sort of channel that too into just sadness and disappointment. Because I think anger a lot of times is a cover for those emotions. Feeling sad and feeling disappointed, sort of a defensive reaction. You don't want to be in that vulnerable space of showing that you're sad. Oh my gosh, you treated me like this, and that's something that I've definitely been working on and still could use some work on, is to just show the sadness, the disappointment, show the real feelings underneath, and I think that's been very helpful, because another issue there is that when you express the anger, when you let it out, when you don't do anything about it, or when you explode in front of your kid, they learn that. They learn, oh, this is what you do when you get angry. You scream, you yell. So you always want to model the type of behavior that you want to see in your child.
Yeah.
And often you have to do it without even having the expectation that they're even going to mirror it in the first place, right? You got to do it for yourself.
Right, because I can tell you what happened in my experience with parenting is that sometimes they would do stuff that they never saw us do. So I would be like, what? Where'd you learn that? Like, we don't do that. Like, we never did that. Like, that's what? Like, that's crazy. I don't understand where you learned that. So they surprise us and they throw us curveballs, and I think I mentioned that also if they do see us get upset, like, kids do, they'll see their parents. So, my husband and I had 10 years together before we had kids, so we were pretty much established in how we were going to handle conflict and things like that. And it was hard when they were little, but as they got older, we just did. We wanted to because we liked each other and loved each other, and we did a lot of personal development. And I think that's what a lot of parents don't understand. So when I would have, parenting workshops, parents would come and they just want to fix a behavior, and they just don't understand that it is the behavior is so topical, and we really have to go deeper underneath that, to figure out what's going on. I think that's the basis for mindful parenting. It's having awareness about your child's behavior and yours. Typically, parents are so focused on the kids, they're not accepting responsibility for the energy that they're bringing to, to contribute to the behavior they're complaining about. Right? Would you agree, Heather?
Yeah, I think, piggybacking on, the idea that, we are modeling out, I think that sometimes that's a big responsibility for us to take on, me included. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like a model for this kid all day long. Like, how can I be on all day long? Like, I'm not that woman. And yet, I do my best to be. But what I found, too, is when I am off, or I have those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, Jacob, one more question, man. Like, seriously, it's going to take me over the edge. When I have that space and I act in a way that I wouldn't want to act, I immediately do my best to, like, check back in with myself and then reapproach him and say, you know what, Mommy was just frustrated, and I'm sorry. That was not the best way to approach this. I need to, next time, let you know I need a break for a minute. Count to 60 and I'll be right back with you. And give him that space to say that I made a mistake and that I'm going to do better next time, and then follow through with that next time. And I think that takes the pressure off for me in particular, like, of being this super mom all the time, because I think that, we can run ourselves into the ground trying to be the very best version of ourselves for our kids. But that's not normal life either, because there's going to be moments where somebody cuts you off in traffic and almost, slams into you, and you automatically respond with, oh my gosh, or frustrated, or, our dog passed away, and, my son saw me hysterical, a dog that we had for 17 years. He was my grandma's dog, and then she died, and then my mom's dog, and then she died. So this dog had, like, this legacy with our family, and when I lost the dog, I was hysterical, and I had to call a friend and get her to come get my son because I had to take care of this dog that was dead in my bedroom. You know, my husband was out of town, and to some people it might not be that traumatic. For me, it was incredibly traumatic, and what I realized is I didn't handle it perfectly in that moment because my son got really scared, and he's like, "Mama, you know, Furby died," and I didn't even know he knew died. I didn't even know he knew that, and so then I'm hysterical even more. And so once it was all said and done, and my friend came and got him, took him to school, came back home, and I was calm and cool, relaxed. Then we had to talk again, and I said, Mommy didn't handle that very well. I said I was just very, very scared and sad because I'm going to miss Furby. And we had a whole discussion about it in a 3-year-old capacity, right? And about the gist of the conversation was, sorry, Mama, sad, Furby died. You know, like that was about the gist of it. But I didn't handle it well, and yet I could back up, and when I saw him again and was in the space of calm, cool and collected, then I could say, I made a mistake, I didn't handle it so well, and explain the death process, too, to him in a more efficient way. So if we can just be gentle on ourselves a little bit in the moment of, like, I'm not always going to do it right, not always going to do it perfect, but I can actually fix that which I feel like I screwed up, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I have my iPhone sitting here, and I can't tell you. I think that's the biggest shift in the generations, or in this style of parenting, that I would say is that I have so many notes where I went to sleep or cried myself to sleep, and I want to make sure that parents understand this. And I would write my daughters like a letter. Like, seriously, I would write, like, Dear Isabella, Mommy is so sorry. I can't believe that I did that. And I think we're harder on ourselves, too, once we have self-awareness, because we think, oh, we should know better, we should do better. We're harder on the people, on us, than other people are, because we're actually studying it. But this is what I would say to all parents. It's not about, and I realized this when I was shaming and blaming myself, doing the exact thing I didn't want to do to my children. I was doing it to myself. It's not about, mindful parenting is not about perfection. It's about having awareness of your behavior. So when, we want to model, like for us, Heather, we have, for me, I have 2 girls. You guys both have boys, right? But I'm modeling how a grown woman handles life, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm on 24/7, though they are watching me, but they see me so-called mess up. But none of it's a mess up or a mistake. It's all perfect, because if I show them my authentic self and I show them my raw emotions and they get to see that, they understand that they too can show theirs, and they don't have to be perfect. So I think there's a misconception sometimes with people thinking, even us, of ourselves, but thinking that it's some kind of like perfection, or because there's no award given to us, right? There's benefits of our families and our connection, but it's not like we're trying to win something, right? But we're not trying to perfect anything, and we're not trying to be robots, right? But before, I would feel so much guilt, like, oh my God, they saw me cry, they saw me weak, they saw me break down. How are they going to trust me? I'm the leader, like, right? But they, I experience, oh my God, my kids learned compassion. I mean, my kids will come up and, pet my arm and hug me and say, oh, Mama, I'm here. I get to experience what I give them back on me. They give it to me. Oh, Mom, it sounds like you had a hard day. Maybe you want to go take a magnesium bath. Or you must be tired. We're ready to go to bed. They're putting me to bed, right? Like, you get to receive it in return, it's okay to show them that, because once you teach them that, they're going to use it on you.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
I bet and I'm sure men, it's even dialed up a little bit more of a notch of showing being vulnerable. Is that how it feels for you, Eric, or?
Yeah, there are difficulties. I can't claim to speak for all men, but there can be a challenge in just showing your vulnerable side.
Yeah, I bet.
But I think there's a point that I wanted to make there, and that it's okay to say sorry to your kids.
Yes.
maybe in the quote unquote old school, paradigm of parenting, there's sort of the expectation that kids are the ones who should be apologizing to you, right? But it's okay for parents. I think it's great, if you make a mistake, or if you let your own emotions get out of control. I go to my son all the time and I say, "Gosh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have acted that way." Or I'll say, "We're a big apologizing family here. So I'll apologize to my wife, or maybe an emotional upset with her, and I'll make a point sometimes to say that in front of him. And recently, he started to model that same behavior. He'll say when he's sorry, when he's feeling sorry, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, I think it's history making, honestly, what we're doing. It is, because generationally speaking, parents do not apologize to the children. So I think it's wonderful, and I mean, I want everyone to know. We'll have another topic on apologizing and sorries in the future, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. I could say that I have some feelings towards the word sorry, because I always tell my kids, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry," or I say I'm sorry, and then it doesn't sound right, because we're saying we're sorry for having emotions, and we're sorry, right? But what we really kind of are saying is like, "I feel better now. Can we start over?" Or it's sorry can have so many different meanings, and it's really the acknowledgement that matters, right? Like, it's the acknowledgement that in our house, we say I wasn't aligned. I just wasn't aligned. My energy was off. I wasn't aligned. And there's no more discussion needed, really, usually. Usually that, that sort of helps everybody come back together and reconnect. But anyway, I think it's beautiful that you could do that. And Eric, yes, you are a little outnumbered with Heather and I with estrogen here. But I think it's amazing, because I don't remember my dad when I was growing up, because now he's opened up a lot. But my dad growing up, I don't remember him saying he was sorry. I remember him leaving all the time, and exiting the conflict, or something like that. But they didn't, you know.
Well, that's what I love about the men coming up in this space too, because I think it's been primarily driven by women. And I think having men come up in this space and say, "Hey, this is how we can do it different," because again, from, like you said, my dad was more interested in Star Trek and like watching, watching Star Trek. So or Trek. I don't say it right. My husband always gets me on that, but whatever. MASH, all of those. My dad was a TV junkie, so he could care less what I was doing or what I was feeling. He loved me, but he was into TV, and so he thought Friends were really his friends, So, so yeah, I think that it's beautiful, and I think that it's so needed to have strong male role models out there in this space, because it's primarily driven by women. And Zen Parenting, Todd and Kathy Adams, Todd is doing the same type thing, driving that male role into this space. And I think it's beautiful, because we need that balance of what do men need in this space. And you guys are the primary people for our sons, especially as role models, So, there's definitely a really important voice that needs to be heard, and that's why I'm so glad you joined in with us, even though it can be quite women driven. But I think it's imperative that people like you come up and say, "Look, I don't have to hit, I don't have to do these things. Here's what I can do different," and it feels so much better, because I think that that's the missing piece in all of this. It's not should you do it or shouldn't you do it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it bad for your kids? Is it good for your kids? It doesn't matter. It doesn't feel good. Like, what I know for sure is when some parent hits their child, spanking, slapping, pinching, my mom did not feel good about doing it. She felt like it was necessary, or it was something that had to happen to get the point across, or me to learn my lesson. but it wasn't something that she felt good about. And that's what I think this generation is driving for, is let's feel good. Let's have that space where we can say, hey, this feels so much better. Like, let's do that and watch it work, you know, better than the other way, in the sense of better meaning you feel good and your child feels good, not one or the other or neither, which is generally what happens when people punish or be in that space. Like, I watch it day in and day out. The kid doesn't feel good. The parent doesn't feel good. So why are we doing this? Like, it doesn't feel good. Like,
you know, the thing about everything that we're talking about and that you're saying, it's just making me think that you know, the issue is, see, in our house, I didn't even teach, just because I didn't feel comfortable with it. Not that it's like right or wrong or anything, but I didn't even teach my kids to hit anything when they were upset, because I didn't want them to associate that action with being upset, you know, because, but that's probably just because I didn't feel comfortable with it. I totally agree with moving. So, you know, jumping jacks, touch your toes, do something like, you know, something, I don't know, whatever. Whatever you can think of in the moment, I totally agree. But what I wanted to say was, yeah, I don't think that anyone felt good, but I don't think that they had huge awareness of the repercussions. And I think that in the world that we live in today, we, even if we don't watch the news, we understand the world we live in. We hear on Facebook or other social media outlets, we understand what's happening in the world, and there is violence that is taking place. And I believe for myself, I don't want to speak for you guys, so you'll tell me what you think. I believe that the root of all of it starts in the home. It starts in the home. I mean, that is where they are growing and being home. So I felt a big responsibility to the people that I was going to send out into the world. You know, and if I wanted to be the change I wish to see in the world, I was going to have to do a lot of work to do that. So I was willing to make that commitment. And, you know, some people would say to me, you know, but you've worked at home, you have more time. And I agree, I have had more time possibly, but than somebody who maybe goes to work all day long and comes home and has to take care of the kids. But I've also spent all my free time, you know, looking into this and learning it. So I'm willing to share the information and the knowledge that I have learned with people who have less time, but not having enough time. There's not enough excuses in the world, in my eyes, for hitting somebody that you love. And I used to tell, you know, anyone that would listen, I don't believe in leaving evidence. So throwing things, breaking things, when you recover and you're happy afterwards, what do you do then? I don't understand how you can recover and eat dinner with someone who just smacked you. It's my t-shirt. It doesn't make any sense. Right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, it really does all start in the home, and you know, and sometimes it's a balancing act, because we're not all perfect, and we're all going through we're all here to learn something, you know. So my personal belief is that there's always a type of perfection in the universe, in every moment, right? That being said, there's ways to make the world a better place too. So again, I think there's a bit of a balance between accepting this sort of universal perfection in every single moment and saying, well, we can still do better. So how can we make things better?
Right, but also making that decision with your family. So like I just said in my podcast previously, you know, we make decisions all day long, right? I mean, this is a choice, right? Like Heather said, this is a choice. So we make decisions. And like you made a decision to get married, right?
Right.
I've made a decision. We're all married, right? So we made a decision to do that. Not everyone does that, and it's not for everyone. We made a decision to do that, and then we decided how that's going to look and how that's going to feel. I didn't say that I'm going to date once a month once I get married. You know, I mean, I made a decision. Yeah. Like, that's my limit. That's my boundary, right? Like, I made a decision. So in parenting, I think you can as well. It's not about perfection. It is about choice.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, my favorite, I think Vanilla Sky was the movie Vanilla Sky, and also Save the Last Dance, because that's one of my favorites. Anyway, I can watch that a million times. But the 2 times they said, you know, every given moment is an opportunity to change your entire life. And so, you know, my wish for parents that maybe have been in the space of like, this is what I've done. I've spanked, I've whatever, and you're making a different choice, to see that as that's done and let's move on, because it's an opportunity to have a whole entire different life. And so to not hold ourselves in the space of, you know, well, I've done this for so long, I can't change now. There's definitely an opportunity at any given moment to change the trajectory of your life for all
Remember
of us,
that?
right?
Remember that quote? Do you guys know that quote? You know, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, or today. You know, it's like just
Yeah.
It's okay. You know, it's okay. You have to be willing to be kind to yourself, right?
Yeah, it's like anybody that, you know, has been on a diet or, you know, had a major health crisis like a heart attack or something, and they have a wake-up call and say, gosh, I'm going to do everything different now, and then live another 40 years healthy and happy because they've made a conscious decision to change.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter at that point in time up until the heart attack, and you're healthy. It doesn't matter about the heart attack. It's done. It's over. It's the past. And so now we can move forward in the future, and that's what I'm hoping that we can inspire parents to see a different space and go, gosh, you know, it is possible, and I can let go of that person that I was and become the person that I really want to be in this moment and move forward. That's my hope.
That's great. You know, there's a great quote that I love that goes right along with these lines, and that you're under no obligation to be the same person you were a week ago or even 5 minutes ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, you know, we hold on to these stories of ourselves, right? And then sometimes when new information does come along, we say, well, does this fit in with me, right? Am I this type of parent? Am I that type of parent? And yeah, you can. There's a choice to be made in every moment, and you can always choose a new one.
I have people that have said to me, I am who I am, and I'm like, oh, okay, so you're Popeye? Like, you can't like learn something new? You're just gonna eat your spinach and, you know, fight? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not I am who I am. You am who you choose to be. So I did that. That didn't feel good. So it is, it is not going to be for everyone, and everybody has their own path and their own journey, but we just want to open up the dialogue to let people know that if in fact they are on the fence and they would like to choose a different way and they would like to have a different relationship with their children, that there are other possibilities for parenting, right? Would you guys agree?
Yeah, and I think that, too, again, it goes back to being habitual, right? Like, this is what we say, well, my mom did it and I'm fine, or my dad spanked me and I'm fine. And yes, that is very true. My mom spanked me and I'm fine. And I also can do things different, and because it doesn't feel good to me. So, you know, we get into this habitual story, as you guys are saying, of, well, this is who I am, this is how I've been, my mom and dad did it, I'm fine, what's the big deal? Well, our object of the game, in my opinion, is not to be fine, is to expand and grow and to feel even more elation, more joy, more everything in those moments. And so, you know, we can have the story, but it's
Nobody graduates college and does like a beautiful lecture and says, I hope you're all fine once you get out of here.
Yeah.
How did you feel? Did you enjoy it? Did you really like love and honor that person that hit you? Like, there's a deeper conversation there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, I always wonder what people mean when they say, well, I'm fine. What does fine mean to you?
Yeah, and everybody's definition of fine is different, obviously, too. Like,
right.
You know, your fine is different than my fine. And so, you know, I think that, again, I really believe that people want more and don't know necessarily how to get there. And I think that people like us are saying, hey, it's possible, and hey, if you want to give this a shot, give it a whirl and see how it works, and see how you feel after it, and go from there, and just being brave enough to stand out in the crowd and say, it's a poster we had in our preschool, in my preschool. It was, stand there even if you're standing all alone, like be the one to stand up for what you believe in, even if you're standing all alone. And I think that that's kind of what we're doing. But the good news is we're not alone, and I think that there's a lot of parents that want to join us in this journey. A lot of parents.
Yeah. Heather, I noticed you mentioned how you feel about taking a certain action, or how you feel in any given situation. And it's sort of a lot. And I love that, because what you're doing is you're just following your emotional guidance system, right? You're following. You're just saying, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? And I think that anyone can have a lot of success doing that, particularly with parenting. How does this feel? I have a choice here. I can whop my kid on the behind, or I can take a 5-minute break and go into another room by myself and let myself calm down. Which one feels better? So I really love that.
Yeah, definitely. And some people might argue it might feel good in the moment to spank them. But I would challenge them too in that space to say, fast forward a little bit. And I think what happens is, for me, I can only say for me, and being in the experiences I've been in, is that there are times when I get so wrapped up in my anger that I can't see clearly. And for me, I have to clearly define with my son in the moment, I'm upset, I need a minute. I need you to count to 60 seconds so that I can reset and get in a space where I can talk to you. And being clear enough with him that he knows now, I need that space, because I have to reset and recalibrate, because I'm really off my game right now, and we don't give ourselves that opportunity to recalibrate. We're like, we have to deal with this in the moment, and we have to fix this, and we have to teach them a lesson, and we have to, all of these we have to's, instead of like honing it back in and saying, okay, what am I wanting in this situation? What do I need in this situation? How can I best facilitate a conversation that's going to get us to the next place where we're both cooperating together? Like, all of those, that inner dialogue goes on in my head as I'm taking that 60 seconds and taking some deep breaths and re-cleansing and going, okay, whew, okay, I'm back. Now I can talk to you in this space. But if I'm in the space of anger, I can't talk to him as my husband, as a boss. And I think that our expectation level for our children is so huge right now, of like, and especially with all the data that we are given in life, I think that our expectations are rising in our children of like, they should know better. Well, he's only been on this planet 36 months. Like, on this planet 36 months. And so you put anybody in a high stress level job for 36 months, they don't have it mastered. I promise you that. Even corporate executives don't have it mastered in 36 months. So, it's kind of given us a break, cutting them a little bit of slack and saying, whew, take this all down a notch. Like, let's roll it down. Nothing has to be solved right in this moment. We can take a breath. And I think when people can take a breath and recalibrate, that's when we can say, oh, this feels better, and, all of that too. So I agree, Eric. Like, I think that is the key. And Tina says it all the time, feel your way through parenting. Like, it's the same thing, Right.
And another thing I love to teach people is that sometimes I think that parents don't have a lot of trust in their children that they'll turn out all right, right? I think there's a sense of, children have got to be constantly corrected and, shifted this way and that, and sometimes you just got to have a little faith and trust and accept, and sometimes some of the job as the parent is just to not mess them up, right? You kind of get out of their way, and so when we're constantly doing the correcting and the demanding, then I think so. I think that can be overdone. Is the point that I'm getting at. And I think sometimes just
Yeah.
trusting and appreciating and allowing your kid to be who they are goes a long way and works a lot of. There's a lot of magic in that too.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
like Heather was saying, to be on all the time as this like on parent, it is exhausting and feeling like if you don't teach your children, I can guarantee you. So I'm just a teeny bit a little further along age-wise with the kids, but as I told you guys before, that my kids have not gone to school. They are beyond brilliant. And I'm not saying that to like brag. I'm saying that because I'm impressed by them. Like I learned so much from them. And their brilliance can really shine when you don't squash it. You know, in my book that I'm writing, I talk about parents always teaching, always quizzing. So like you're at the grocery store, right, and you hear, you know, a child and a parent interact, and you know, the child says like bananas, you know, and the mom's like, how many bananas are there, you know, and without even without even like, because they think every single thing is like a learning opportunity, right? Like if they bought the bananas and they didn't ask them how many, they wouldn't actually learn how to count. But you know, I sort of have an analogy, like if I was always quizzing my spouse, you know, like, you know, if I would ask him like, oh, you got gas, how many gallons of gas did you get, and how many dollars was it per gallon? Like these conversations are just sometimes unnecessary because they will learn by watching us. They'll learn by doing it. But I also think there's a time and a place, even though every moment is a learning moment. Sometimes you don't have to teach it. They learn it by, you know, watching or being near it or being around it, and it's kind of like, you know, gets into them. Or they ask a question. You know, I kind of believe in permission-based teaching. You know, like, what if I'm not in the mood to answer how many bananas, right? Your kid doesn't want to be quizzed. In that moment, they're just hungry or don't want to be at the store. So, you know what I mean? And I think that that's when a lot of these peaceful parenting moments can really happen. If you just learn to be a little more gentle and peaceful and allow. Are you guys asleep? We're like, yes, yes, absolutely.
No, you like
Started to
froze for
break
a
up a
second.
little.
Oh, I started to freeze. I thought you guys were like, yes, sensei, whatever you say.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Your eyes start spinning like Jungle Book.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
no, you were freezing a little bit, so no,
Oh, okay, it was a technology thing.
yeah, no, total technology thing, total tech. You know, and like you said, they learn along. I mean, they learn the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I mean, even my son was on a payphone, like he loves phones, like his mother, and he's on a payphone, and this guy walks by and he goes, shh, shh, I'm on the phone, shh, shh, I'm on the phone, and I was like, and the guy starts laughing. I was like, I wonder where he got that from, like, so
Right?
you know.
You didn't have to teach him that, right?
I didn't specifically teach him that, but boy,
Yeah?
he picked up on that like nobody's business. He's like, shh, I'm on the phone. Shh, just I'm on the phone. And I'm like, okay, buddy, sorry. Like, so, you know, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if, you know, so I'm not incredibly proud about it, but it's kind of funny. So,
It's kind of
whatever.
funny. I think we have to be a little more lighthearted, and the more lighthearted we get, and like you said, Eric, and like you teach Heather, they are wise inside, and we have to trust their divinity and trust that they came here, you know, with the proper ability to handle this world. So anyway, this has been so amazing. I don't know if you guys have any last things that you want to add, but I've really enjoyed our conversations. They're always enlightening. I think soon we'll get maybe some people to ask some questions that we can answer too on the air. But is there anything else you guys wanted to say before we sign off?
I think the idea of questions, yeah, that's a great. Let's maybe we can do that in the future. I don't have too much to add other than to say, you know, this stuff, this works better for me anyway, and I think Heather has said it great too, in that the whole spanking, punishing, it's not necessary, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily.
It's
This
like
is
using
right,
a very,
right?
it's like using a very old PC. and carrying it around in your car or something, right?
Right.
Like it's just it's
Right.
not necessary. It's outdated.
Right,
You know,
right.
we don't even have payphones anymore, right, Heather? Like,
Well, there was one in the shopping center we went to, which I didn't know what to do with it, but yes.
right, you're like, oh my God, what is that? Is Superman going to come out of it? Like,
Yeah,
what
I'm
is
like,
that?
no, and I would just add too that there is a greatness that lies in each and every one of us, and that to both of your points of trusting that all is well, that they came here on purpose, and our job in my mind, in my heart as a parent, more than anything on this planet, is to remind them of their greatness when they forget. And that is the safe space to fall in. That's where they trust that they will be reminded. There's African tribe that we actually quote in our book that talks about that when any child comes into this planet, they have a song that they sing to them. And anytime anything major happens to them, they get married, they move out of the village, they sing this song to them. The only time that they are put around this song when they do something that is not acceptable in the village, they put them in the center of the village. The villagers surround them and sing their song to them. And the idea is that we are constantly reminding them of their greatness. And this is a total whole nother podcast, but there is a school of thought that it is not okay to praise your kids. It's not good to praise your kids. It's not good to say that you're amazing or wonderful or special. And I really would love to tackle that with you guys in the next couple of ones at some point in time. But the truth is that all of us in our hearts, we want to know that we matter, that we have value, that we have purpose on this planet. And I believe that as parents, we are the biggest influencers in their life to remind them that they matter. When I was being bullied for being overweight as a child, and my mom said to me at night, "They're wrong. You are here on purpose. You have a purpose for being here. They're wrong." It reiterated that they were wrong. And so she reminded me of my greatness, why I'm here. And that's what I want to help inspire all of us to. And reminding us each of our greatness, kind of eliminates all of this other junk that we are bringing along with us. Shaming, blaming, punishing, all that stuff. It's going to be eliminated because that's not part of greatness, And so I think that that's really our goal, is to remind ourselves of our own greatness as parents, but also remind our children in their weakest moments, in their saddest moments, this is not who you are. If you choose to hit somebody, that's not who you are. That is not who you are. You are an amazing soul on this planet, and you just didn't know how to communicate what you need and want, so here's your tool.
Right.
Love that.
That's the difference.
Awesome. All right, guys. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So until next time, until next topic, we will continue learning and growing and being committed to parenting in a gentle, nonviolent way, primarily, not 24/7, not perfection, just doing our best to hold space for us and our family to grow and evolve together.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We'll have like years of topics.
Right. I know. Okay, good. Well, I enjoyed it, you guys. We're going to sign off now.
Super.
Thank you. Have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
Namaste. Namaste.